Hola a todos, mi nombre es Lila y mis pronombres son ella y ella. Y estoy aquí con mi compa y cointérprete Catalina, sus pronombres son ella y somos miembros del colectivo de justicia del lenguaje de Bancha Lenguas basado en Bulbancha, Luisiana, también conocido como New Orleans. Hi everybody, my name is Lila and my pronouns are she and they, and I'm joined today by my comrade and co-interpreter Catalina, whose pronouns are she. We are members of Bancha Lenguas Language Justice Collective based in Bulbancha, Louisiana, also known as New Orleans. We'll be providing interpretation from English to Spanish and Spanish to English today. Vamos a estar proveyendo interpretación de inglés al español y español al inglés. Como trabajadores de justicia del lenguaje, nos esforzamos a crear un espacio para que todos aquí presentes puedan entender y ser entendidos en el idioma en que nos sentimos más poderosos. As language justice workers, we strive to create a space for everyone here to understand and be understood in the language in which they feel most powerful. Pulvancha es la palabra Choctaw que significa la tierra donde se habla muchos lenguajes. Pulvancha is actually the Choctaw word, which means the land where many languages are spoken. At Bancha Lenguas, we work towards gender inclusivity in our language justice work. And you will notice us using the letter E at the end of gendered words. It's not an error, it is us attempting to create more inclusive language and include people of all genders. Notará que estamos usando la letra al final de las palabras binarias. Esto no es un error, es nuestro intento en crear crear lenguaje más inclusivo e incluir personas de todos géneros. Now we'll explain how to access the interpretation platform. Ahora explicaremos cómo acceder a la plataforma de interpretación. If you are using a computer, you will see a globe icon at the bottom of your screen with the word interpretation. Click on it and select the language of your choice, English or Spanish. Si está usando una computadora, vas a ver un icono de globo al pie de tu pantalla con la palabra interpretación. Haz clic sobre eso y selecciona el canal de tu lenguaje preferido, inglés o español, y después tiene que hacer finalizar. You have to click done once you're finished selecting the language of your choice. For a smartphone or tablet, look for 3 dots that read more. Click on that to make your selection. Para teléfono inteligente o tableta, busca 3 puntos que lean más. Haz clic para hacer tu selección. And just a reminder that everyone who is not fluent in both English and Spanish needs to select a language of choice. Un recordatorio que todos aquí, los que no son fluyentes en el inglés y el español, tienen que seleccionar un lenguaje de preferencia. To create the space together, we have to do a few things together. For one, please speak at a slow and steady pace. If you're talking too fast, you'll see us do this. Hand signal to slow down. And please speak loudly and clearly. We will do this hand signal if you're speaking too softly. And please try to say the full name of organizations or other acronyms. Also, please keep an eye on the chat in case we send a message to slow down or speak up. And keep your mic on mute when you're not speaking. And if you had headphones, please use them. And lastly, one speaker at a time. Interpreters can only interpret one voice at a time, and we don't ever want to be in a position of having to decide which voice to privilege over the other. Para hacer este espacio, juntes algunas cositas. Por favor, hable un paso lento y constante. Si está hablando demasiado rápido, nos verá hacer esta señal de manos para ir más despacio. Habla en voz alta y clara. Haremos esta señal con la mano si no podemos escucharte. E intente decir el nombre completo de los acrónimos, por ejemplo, de diferentes organizaciones. Y échale un ojo al chat por si enviamos un mensaje para ir más lento o hablar en voz más alta. También, por favor, mantén su micrófono en silencio si no estás hablando. Y si tienes audífonos con micrófono, por favor, utilízalo. Y por último, una persona a la vez. Los intérpretes solamente pueden interpretar una voz a la vez y no queremos estar en una posición de tener que decidir cuál voz darle privilegio sobre otra. Lastly, don't suffer in silence. If you have any problems with hearing us or the speakers, please send us a message in the chat. Y por último, no sufra en silencio. Si tiene cualquier problema escuchándonos a nosotros o a los presentadores, por favor envíenos un mensaje al chat. And thank you again for your commitment to creating a multilingual space. Muchas gracias por su compromiso en crear un espacio multilingüe.
Leila, do Katie, Michelle, and I need to choose a language as well? Okay.
I did.
And I can be assigned to interpreter whenever you have a chance.
Okay. Let's make sure that worked, and then we will dive in, Katie and Michelle. Nice. Morgan, thank you very much. Katie and Michelle, whenever you're ready.
Michelle, you went first?
Sure. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to see everyone here. I am Michelle Burris, and I am an family child care provider in New Jersey for Mighty Miracle Learning Center. I am also a professional learning community leader for our Burlington County FCC providers.
Hi, I'm Katie Tostado-Kencher, and I am coming to you from San Diego, California. I'm a family child care provider. And also I'm the president of the San Diego County Family Child Care Association, and also the president of the California Family Child Care Network. Welcome. We also have here tonight with Mary Beth Tessa, a policy consultant with the National Association for Family Child Care. Mary Beth has been in and around the federal child care law and advocacy for child care for about 20 years, and for the last 6 years or so has focused on advocacy with family child care providers. Hi, Mary Beth.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Mary Beth. All right, I just want to encourage everyone to introduce yourselves in the chat, and you can add questions there as well. And we'll be addressing those questions, and we'll also be doing some follow-up after also. And I just want to make a note. I'm very, very excited that we have over 700 people registered for this webinar. So we know people are also watching from Facebook. So that is an amazing thing.
All right. Our goals tonight is to provide base information about the federal law, to understand the design of the law and the connections of family child care, and to demonstrate that everything is different in each state and that anything can change at the federal and state level. That's why we advocate around CCDBG.
All right, so are we going to do our first slide, our slide one?
Sorry about that.
That's all right. All right, so we have our first slide here. CCDBG is about all of us, right? So Child Care and Development Block Grant, or CCDBG, is the entry point. And it's what holds us back and what launches us forward. So across ages 0 to 12, navigating licensure, quality initiatives, accessibility and affordability, professional development and qualifications, and approaches to monitoring. It also is federal investment is crucial, all right? And state choices too, lots of them.
All right, we'd like to share a little bit about ourselves. I'm a licensed family child care provider, and in California, we have two different kinds of licenses, but we have a small license where you can care for 4 infants, that's up to 2 years old, or you can care for 3 infants and 3 children over 3, or you can also have plus two children, school-age children, and only 2 infants. Then we have a large license, which you can have 4 infants, and then the rest can be over 2, and that's with 2 providers. So our state is a little bit different than New Jersey, right, Michelle?
That's right. And in New Jersey, I am a registered provider. and we can only care for 5 children at one time. And right now, I'm not caring for any children. And the ones that I did care for, none were paying subsidy or assistance. And that's already showing so many differences, right? Just between the two of us, Katie, California, and New Jersey. And Mary Beth, I want to ask you, how did we even get here, and where does it start?
Thanks, Michelle. It's been a long and winding road to get to where we are. A long and winding road too, that about valuing childcare, about valuing mothers who work jobs outside of the home, and valuing the caregivers that also make that possible. That's really where this starts. And it's been a long and winding road behind us. And sometimes it feels like there's a long and winding road before us too, but there's lots of new work to be done about that. That's truly where it starts though, about what we value and how we act on that. There had been 4 federal programs focused on childcare as a work support for mothers in what had been known as the welfare program, 2 of those, and 2 that were focused on low-wage working mothers who were not a part of what was known as the welfare program. 2 of the programs were known as entitlement programs, which meant that the investment was obligated for as many families as were eligible. And then in the early 1990s, Congress brought the pieces of these 4 programs together and eliminated the idea of the entitlement, the idea that it would move with the number of families who were eligible. But it's still called that. That word is still used, and we'll come back to that. And the funds are a mix of federal dollars called mandatory dollars and federal dollars called discretionary dollars. The discretionary dollars are the ones we advocate for to the House and Senate Appropriations Committees every single year. But we also need investment in the mandatory dollars, and those come from the Senate Finance Committee and the House Ways and Means Committee. Those are multi-year dollars. Once they agree on an amount, we don't have to go back every single year. It stays with us. And as part of the recovery package, Congress actually invested significantly in those multi-year mandatory funds, which I think is an exciting way to think about, some new ways to think about the work, knowing that that investment is now part of our law. So that's already 4 committees then, 2 appropriations committees and 2 others that deal with the money, but there's still 2 others that that focus on the details and the contents of the child care law, because it's important to be complicated. It's complicated, but we're going to talk about lots of that tonight and how this is about all of family child care. This is our structure. And so we have the Child Care and Development Block Grant Law, which authorizes what's called the Child Care Development Fund. So you may have heard about your state's CCDF plan. You may be familiar with your state's CCDF administrator. This is all the same bucket of what we're talking about in the way you live it and experience it in your family child care program and in your community. So this law, the details of the law when they arranged it in the 1990s were basically, hey, states, go set up a subsidy assistance program and do some minimum health and safety. And that way, working parents will have a place to drop off children. And that went on for years. and state leaders did what they could, and you all did what you could, and new ideas came and went while there were too little funding. Everyone did their best to be creative, but forward we went. And then in 2014, Congress reauthorized, which is to renew a federal law. They renewed the federal child care law in 2014. We're sort of supposed to do that sort of thing every 5 years, and we do not. We do not do that. But in 2014, more details were added about health and safety and background checks, but it still says, hey, states, you will set this up. And importantly, we feel like the 2014 renewal of the law was a chance to say that childcare isn't only about supporting work. Childcare is about care. Childcare is about children. And so the law has what we also call a set aside for quality. So some of the funds appropriated to the law must be used for quality activities. And in 2014, they said, we're going to make that bigger. So what for years had only been a 4% set aside grew to 9%. But the other committees in Congress, the ones who decide the money amounts, didn't send the additional funds to make all the new good ideas into real good ideas. And so states continued along, and you all continued along. And over that same time, from 2014 to 2017, the availability of regulated family childcare dropped by 22%. And we continued to struggle with only serving some 1 in 6 eligible children in the subsidy program, and with asking people to understand where were these other 5 out of 6 children, and how were their families, and how were their childcare providers, and what about the families not eligible yet, and what are the policies and practices that would help family childcare to thrive and to stay open and be available to families. That's what brings us to now.
The federal child care law has 4 main focuses areas. Mary Beth, tell us about those.
Sure. So the federal law that we have today has 4 main focus areas. They are to protect the health and safety of children in childcare, to help parents make informed consumer choices and access information to support child development, to provide equal access to stable, high-quality childcare for low-income children, and to enhance the quality of childcare and the early childhood workforce. So we mentioned the Child Care Development Fund Administrator and those lead agencies. The federal law refers to these as lead agencies. And the federal law has these 2 particular call outs for things that the lead agencies should make a priority. And that's to develop and implement strategies to increase the supply and improve the quality of childcare services for children in underserved areas, for infants and toddlers, for children with disabilities, and those needing care non-traditional hours. That's one priority. And the other is to prioritize investments that increase access for childcare for children in areas with significant concentrations of poverty and unemployment and lack of high quality childcare. To me, these 2 things scream family childcare. Let's prioritize family childcare, which is meeting the needs of all sorts of families in all sorts of communities every day in every state, and is meeting these needs for some high priority areas as well. This is an opportunity to shine a light on these priorities, are an opportunity to shine a light on family childcare.
All right, so Building the supply of family childcare, linking CCDBG ideas and other policies, early Head Start childcare partnerships, quality rating and improvement systems, accreditation, CACFB, preschool early learning initiatives. Now, Mary Beth, the availability of regulated family childcare went down 22% from 2014 to 2017. Can the federal childcare law do anything about that? And can we advocate to do anything about that?
We certainly can. The law is ready to help us do something about that. And states have a lot of choices too, and we'll talk about those tonight. But the ideas in the law, actually I want to go back to this one, sorry. Using the ideas in the law, like licensing, right? The idea that states have to go figure out a setup for minimum health and safety, that licensing entry, who even has to be licensed, right? The standards themselves and the approaches to monitoring are all a way of bringing in and keeping our family child care educators in the work. The approaches to training and coaching and mentoring, subsidy payment rates, and whether you're even allowed to participate in subsidy in your state and what the rules are about that. Also a supply building approach. Grants to child care providers not in the subsidy program, a supply building approach. Family child care networks, infant toddler specialist networks, family child care associations, those people around you that are knowledgeable about family child care and cheering you on, all supply building strategies, because to us at NAFCC, supply building also means keeping you healthy, well, and strong in your business and strong in your practice, and the work of bringing in new family child care into the work. And these strategies through the federal child care law are not only for those who are in the subsidy program. They are a lot for the people who are in the subsidy program, but they don't have to be. And the quality set aside that I mentioned is what pays for the good stuff of licensing and the good stuff of these training initiatives, and also opportunities for states to be creative in their supply building work. And we also think that as we think about the federal child care law and the way we experience it in states, we can also think about how to experience that together with early Head Start child care partnerships. If anybody on the call tonight is in an early Head Start child care partnership, we'd love to hear that in the chat. Let us know that that's you and that you're here. Quality rating and improvement systems, accreditation, the food program, and your state's early learning initiatives, all ways to think about the supply of childcare and to boost the supply of childcare and bring it together with the ideas of the childcare law that we have.
It's also good to note that there are questions about supply building strategies in the CCDF plan and the opportunities and the quality set aside too. And this isn't just limited to those currently in the subsidy program. Building the supply can be about sustaining you, and also about bringing in new family childcare providers, and also about what it takes to connect to public funding.
That's right, Michelle, thank you.
Whenever I meet providers from another state, like at the NAFCC conference, which I've attended many, I'm reminded so deeply that every state does licensing totally different, even what we call it and who it applies to. Mary Beth, we talked earlier about how CCDBG is what holds us back and what launches us forward. Can you tell us more about how our participants tonight might think about that?
Sure, thank you. So I think that the child care law that we have and licensing is very much a jumping off point to the professional practice that is family child care. The federal law says states should decide who is regulated and who is exempt from licensure. And the states also decide what to call it. So, everyone heard as Michelle and Katie were introducing themselves, Michelle is called registered and Katie is called licensed. And what you're called by the state and what you call yourself very much varies from state to state. The federal law says who's in and who's not. The federal law says figure it out. The states decide who is in and who is not in. And the federal law also says states should decide a group size and ratio. The federal law does not say what that group size and ratio should be. The states decide that. So you heard Katie outline several different scenarios for family child care ratio and group size. And in Michelle's case, she can only have 5 at a time. And the differences there are as long as the day in every state. The federal law says there will be annual inspections of providers. If you enroll subsidy with an encouragement to inspect licensed care, even if you don't enroll subsidy. And so the states took to figuring out how to implement that. Your experience with monitoring visits and how often they occur and what those are like might also vary state to state. States have choices about the pathways to licensure, about the regulatory content, and whether it's appropriate to a home-based setting. The states choose the monitors and how they are trained and what content knowledge they have and their caseloads and how those people are supported as well, so that is a good job too. The states choose how to collect stakeholder input on this part of the work, which is an enormous part of the work. And the states choose whether and how licensing is a part of this idea of continuous quality improvement. So all of these things are ways that the federal child care law is about all of family child care, even if you are not currently enrolling families who pay with subsidy.
All right, so we see that the payment to child care providers, and this slide is talking a little bit about the federal laws, family eligibility, grants and contracts, and which care programs are eligible. So a big question on, I think, so many of our minds as we see historic relief funds get approved and sent to states is who decides how this works and how can it work for me and for all of family childcare?
Yes. So a lot of you submitted questions in advance, and who decides how this works was one of the most frequent questions. So who decides how this works is largely your state decision. But we'll talk about that. The federal law says that states should decide what families are eligible for assistance based on their income or maybe other factors too. Your state also decides which child care programs are eligible. Some states say you have to be licensed. Some states say it's okay if you're exempt from licensure. Some states say you have to be in our quality rating system. States are making different choices about this, and that matters to family child care a great deal, whether you're even allowed to participate in the subsidy program, let alone what that experience is, including things like the payments to providers in the subsidy program. The federal law says states go set that up. The amounts, the parent copays or any fees, and the process, that paperwork and the approval, and how smoothly that goes is something that the states figure out. The states can also decide about things like grants and contracts to providers And the federal law allows states to offer such grants and such contracts, even if you are not currently enrolling families that pay with subsidy. There is a way to invest in you as a family child care provider. And I think that's really important. Your lead agency and the people who work there help decide that. Your state legislature might also have a role. But I say all of that because, we say things like, oh, the state decides. The state is people. The state is people who want to do a good job too. And they have questions too. These are people with names and faces and email addresses and Zoom accounts where you can connect with them. And so there's opportunities there as well. And we'll keep talking about that.
Okay, let's go on to training and professional development. Being a family childcare provider is real work, a profession, and not just anyone can do this. So if that is true, and if it's also true that we need support in the form of ongoing training, because there's always something new, a new way to grow, and there's different ways of doing that. So does the federal CCDBG law create a way forward like that?
It sure does. The federal law says states should decide. I wish we could do some call and response about the federal law says states should decide the training to key topics in health and safety and set a requirement for a number of hours. Federal law doesn't say how many hours, your state sets that up. The federal law also says that states should decide professional development more broadly and the links beyond what you do to comply with licensing, because there certainly is more to this work beyond complying with licensure. So states have choices under the federal law, including things like ensuring that the content of training is relevant to the family child care setting and things like mixed ages of children, and certainly things like when and where training takes place, and then also how you put that training to use, right? The point of going to training is to learn something new or brush up on some skills, right? Something should feel different after you've attended a real good training, right? And so how we experience that is also created in each state using the dollars of the federal law. Your state has choices about how to connect the goal of training to overall quality and improvement of your practice, and making sure it's accessible to you and to what your work life really is.
All right, so lots of the new ideas we're hearing about in federal legislation build on CCDBG. They build on our current law in some way. And so as we see new proposals, as we see new legislation, this is who decides at the federal level how it's going to work. And this is who needs to hear from us in a big and coordinated way about family childcare.
Jerlitha is putting into the chat box links to the members of Congress that are on each of these committees. We will also send this out along with the recording after, but we encourage you to check that out and see who's on these and see if your senators or representative are on these. This is who's going to keep making decisions about the federal child care law that applies to all of family child care, even if you are not currently in the subsidy program. These funding decisions and detailed decisions are very much part of a big, bold way forward for family child care.
So we have lots of different associations in New Jersey that we belong to and can get the word out, or they can get the word out to us. And it's very important for us as family childcare providers to join some of these associations. Specifically, and I want to really point out NAFCC, who has been a really big help with me as a family childcare provider, and ensuring success with my business. Katie, you have anything to add to that about California?
Oh, yeah, lots. California is a big state, so we've got lots of family childcare associations. And our local San Diego County Family Childcare Association made sure that we got to sit on the disaster council for childcare that was formed for COVID and also for the fires. We have local licensing calls in every county. We have now they're monthly for COVID and how we were going to follow the guidance. We in San Diego partnered with our local R&R. We have a past family child care provider president from our association who works for the R&R, and they were able to sponsor a mini child care conference with Tom Copeland. And the California Family Child Care Network works with our local California Law Center, and we look at all the legislation and the bills and the regulations. And even today, we had board members on calls for the federal budget. We have an annual forum. And then recently, we just started a leadership cafe that are on Saturdays, and that's been quite popular. So we're doing what we can out here to keep family childcare going. And now that we're considered essential everywhere across the country, you know, it's definitely different in every state. And I too would like to throw a shout out to NAFCC, the National Family Child Care Association. I am actually a lifetime membership. I have a lifetime membership, so I'll be around for a while. Thank you, Mary Beth.
Sure. Thank you, Michelle and Katie, for sharing that about your association work. We say that now because teamwork is what makes any of this possible, right? The way you help that's right. The way you help each other locally, the way you help each other in state advocacy, and the way we help each other at the federal level is so important right now. There are so many ideas flying around. Members and staff of these congressional committees want to know what's going on with family child care providers, and we can answer that question. We can be a part of that work. We can drive good ideas forward when we stick together. So I hope that the next time you get an email asking you to take action at the federal level, that this session has helped you to maybe believe a little more that the federal law and new ideas that build on it very much apply to you and the family child care providers all around you. Katie, can you kick us off here?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
So possibilities for NAFCC action in 2021 to 2022. We're looking at housing, health and mental health, insurance and retirement plans, business, homeowners, and property insurance, the quality journey and the investment for professional development, access, relevance to home setting, value of the setting, and you and the relationships and the interactions.
Michelle, you want to share about these?
Okay. The housing, did you want to
Actually,
had
one more
something, Katie?
thing. We also know that CCBG and the idea of existing laws aren't the only thing on our mind. And we're hearing, and this is what what I was telling you today. All right, Michelle, give it back to you.
So the possibilities for the NACC action in 2021. And we're talking about childcare laws and investments and details like the childcare development block grant and the childcare stabilization, which we've heard a lot about, and the equity and recovery and beyond. And that's within the states, across states, and for families for the workforce. And then there's the child and adult care food program, which I encourage everyone to become a part of, and early Head Start childcare partnerships. We'll hear a lot of that word partnership a lot, right? Moving forward.
These are issues that NAFCC members have raised as we moved around Zoom, listening to you and making that space. I want to thank everybody for sharing these priorities with us. If you have a priority that's not listed here, we'd love to hear that in the chat box too. Okay.
Katie, you want to take it?
Well, we want to thank everybody for coming, and especially thank the NAFCC team.
And want to let everybody know that this session was recorded and that we will take all of your questions and create an easy, handy reference. That's excellent, right? So everyone will know what was said, questions that were asked, and questions that were answered.
Everyone, thank you all for coming tonight. Michelle and Katie, thank you for doing this.
Thank you
Leela
for
and
having us.
Leela and
Maribeth.
Catalina, thank you for making tonight possible. And thanks to Morgan, Jerlitha, and Amy for backing us up here tonight too. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Maribeth, for having this webinar.